In the not-so-distant past, a brutal conflict left mountains of corpses and rivers of blood in its wake. That legendary clash was the Great War of Justice and Demons, ending only when the heavenly demon fell to the fighting immortal. With that defeat, the war finally wraps up, leaving behind a legendary fist technique with a truly terrifying name. The dojo master and father of the young disciples proudly calls it the Bright Eye Fist, drawing immediate laughs and complaints from the kids about changing the name every time. When the kids ask if he really learned it, he tells them they can inherit it too if they train hard. Though a skeptical Jin Guan mutters that he's a total liar. The dojo master and father of the young disciples insists with a grin that mastering those fists will make anyone invincible, prompting Jin Guan to yell that he is just bluffing again. The young student demands to know why someone so strong is hiding out in this remote place. He points out that it makes zero sense for such a powerful martial artist to waste time just teaching kids in a tiny dojo. The large master just laughs off the complaints, insisting that teaching kids makes perfect sense. As the kids happily hang on to him, he brags that his fists are invincible and his junior disciples are adorable. He casually adds that he has a good-hearted son too, though he always grumbles. The boy instantly snaps back, asking why he only mumbles quietly when talking about his own son. Brushing it off with another loud laugh, the master claims he needs nothing more, but the mood suddenly shifts. That invincible father eventually collapsed helplessly, leaving his son watching in horror. A sudden violent cough echoes as dark blood spills across the floor. Pierced through and poisoned by the lethal life-extinguishing grass, the master stares down his traitorous senior disciples standing at the door. A tall figure steps forward, shrouded in a dark cloak. He glares from beneath a wide-brimmed hat with glowing eyes. The first senior disciple, Jin Am, makes his chilling appearance. Jokyeon steps up as the second senior disciple. Then the third senior disciple, Yukwon, reveals herself in the shadows. Rounding out the group is the fourth senior disciple, Wang Pei. A wounded fighter spits blood, shouting that their master would turn in his grave over this power lust. Jin Am flies into a rage, warning him never to mention the fighting immortal in his presence. The battered warrior grins back, declaring that the power was already passed down and they will never get it. That revelation hits the disciples hard, leaving Jin Am furious at the crazy bastard. Jin Guan calls out to his father behind bars, apologizing for showing such a weak side of himself right at the end. But then, his father tells him to pay close attention because from now on, every breath and every movement will be a demonstration. He declares that this is going to be his final lesson. All around, the crowd urges each other on with manic grins, yelling at everyone to grab him and steal that absolute power. A blinding flash erupts over the peaks in a massive display of light. Tears streaming down his face, the young boy calls out to his father in sheer terror. As the injured father admits invincibility might be a bluff, the son begs him to stop, but gets told to stay silent. Looking back with a fierce grin, the wounded man asks his boy if he saw it. With a massive shockwave splitting the terrain in the distance, he declares that his fist is truly invincible. Reaching out with blood-stained hands, the father reveals that the true name of this technique is coming. Gasping at the Limitless Fist Secrets manual in his hands, the boy listens as his father explains it is the ultimate martial art that unites every fist, and its power must be named by him. As the sky looms overhead, the father says the succession of this fist has already begun, believing his proud son can handle it. The young boy watches over his father, reflecting on how he stepped up to protect him and that invincible fist. Mortally wounded and pinned with swords, Jin Mu tells Jin Guan to find his own fist before the end, and just like that, the father crumbles away into nothingness. He leaves behind the crushing weight of the inherited fist, branding the young man's soul. Clutching his gear, he carries the single secret manual hidden away inside his robe. Far away, an elder curses Jin Mu in disbelief for choosing mutual destruction. The survivors realize they would have all died if not for Jiakyan's rapid movement technique. Wounded and coughing blood, one of them points out how much damage the clash caused just by grazing them. Wearing a wide-brimmed hat, Jin Am orders everyone to hunt down Jin Mu's disciples and his son to kill them all, leaving his comrades shocked. Underneath his straw hat, Jin Am declares they are pulling out the roots completely. Someone warns that cutting down a tree means you have to remove the roots. Down in the woods, Jin Guan runs fast through the trees. Fleeing deep into the mountains for a decade, Jin Guan spent 10 years fueled by a secret manual and a burning desire for revenge, training his straight punch like a madman until finally, at just 20 years old, he caught a glimpse of his very own fist. Jin Guan declares that the time has come for his father. The young man vows that the time for revenge has finally arrived. Returning to the world after 10 years for his vengeance, Jin Guan stops dead in his tracks and asks, huh? A woman asks her companion how her guild interview went, and she replies they only take B ranks and up. She suggests joining their group instead, leaving someone listening in utter shock. He stammers out in disbelief, finding the whole setup completely bewildering. Staring with wide, sweaty eyes, he wonders what on earth all of that is supposed to be in this different world. Nearby, someone laughs out loud while he just stares in total confusion. He stays silent, watching them walk off. Realizing 10 whole years have passed, he wonders if young people actually wear clothes like that these days. He gets a close-up view of the modern attire right in front of him. A grinning Jin Mu figures maybe the world has actually improved. Brushing it aside, he remembers that the martial training village was supposed to be right around here. Jin Mu stares up in shock at the towering modern skyscrapers, standing where his old village used to be. Standing alone in the wilderness, the long-haired wanderer looks around in sheer disbelief, wondering if the entire world has changed while he was away. He stops a passing elderly traveler to ask what happened to the village, only for the old man to laugh and ask if he's lived in the mountains his whole life. The elderly man gasps in shock that he hasn't heard about the gate conflict, explaining that a war broke out 10 years ago against beings from a sky void. The old man details how a massive hole first appeared in the sky. A strange and corrupted energy began pouring down through that opening. Plants and animals touched by the energy mutated into terrifying monster beasts. These corrupted creatures are now known as gate beast sites, born anew through the portal. Soon after, otherworldly warriors known as hunters stepped up to fight back. Armed hunters leap into action, ready to clash against the monsters emerging from the void. Their brutal and indiscriminate attacks begin without warning. A fighter strikes down a martial artist with a fatal blow. By their standards, even a low-ranking hunter poses an overwhelming threat. Countless warriors lie defeated on the ruined ground. These hunters could easily wipe out top-tier martial artists. Over 80% of Mareem's warriors died in that war, and just when everyone thought all was lost, suddenly, reinforcements finally appeared. 4 powerful figures step forward onto the battlefield. They are the disciples of the fighting immortal, the 4 heavenly kings. Appearing at the moment of absolute crisis, they began driving the hunters back, while people across Mareem started awakening as hunters themselves. Once the awakened and the traditional martial artists gathered under the 4 heavenly kings, an alliance is forged to fight back against the threat. The war ends after the hunters propose a peace treaty, and an elderly man explains that skills have replaced martial arts in this new era. He declares that the era of the new Murim has officially begun. Stunned, the old man asks if he really just came down from the mountains, while the long-haired wanderer wonders about the disciples of the fighting immortal. The long-haired fighter tells him to read a newspaper for once, leaving the old man speechless. Sweating in disbelief, he realizes with horror that the very enemies who killed his father are now celebrated heroes. Confused about what is going on, he suddenly bumps into someone. A young woman with light blue hair apologizes immediately, and he politely tells her it is fine. After eyeing her revealing outfit, he decides he needs to head to an inn to gather information on how the world changed over 10 years. Wondering where his saved iron coins went. Panic sets in as he checks his clothes and realizes his money is completely gone. His eyes widen in sheer terror when he discovers that the secret manual hidden in his robe has vanished as well. Someone reacts with sheer panic, realizing things are going terribly wrong. Alice sprints away, figuring that whatever she pulled from the robe must be some precious family heirloom. The D-rank thief hunter inspects the smelly loot with absolute disgust, wondering if someone smeared garbage on it. A sudden voice calls out, scaring the living daylights out of Alice as she shrieks in shock. Jin Am crouches above, declaring that the item is worth more than his own life, before Alice demands to know how he tracked her. Jin Am casually explains he just followed her energy, prompting Alice to call him a filthy beggar before freezing up in sheer terror. Terrified, Alice stammers and asks if he is a dangerous dark mage. Jin Am has no clue what a dark mage is and simply demands his belongings back. The long-haired vagrant stops Alice dead in her tracks, lecturing her on greed and stealing. Realizing how easily he reads her mana, she instantly shifts tactics. She bows and begs him for money, discovering he only has a few iron coins. She feeds him a tearful sob story about a sick sister, secretly celebrating her own acting. She claims a plague hit her village, and no one could cure it. A healer arrived with the cure, but raised prices until he demanded payment with their bodies. He asks why she didn't just pay with labor, prompting her to make up an excuse about her beauty. She covers her face, sweating nervously while waiting for his reaction. He agrees to help, noting with a smile that this works out perfectly for something he wanted to check. Wang Pai steps in, declaring that since her situation is so dire, he'll turn the crisis into an opportunity. Alice panics, yelling that all she asked him to do was lend her some gold. Brushing her off, he demands that she take him straight to this mysterious healer at once. Arriving at the destination, he asks if this is the place, while Alice senses only sinister energy instead of medicine. Stepping inside, he decides to see just how great this supposed physician really is. As the door creaks open, Wang Pei is met with a shocking sight. He notes they don't look like healers at all, and decides he must be in the wrong place. Alice suddenly strikes from behind, sending him crashing hard to the wooden floor. Standing over him, Alice insists he brought this on himself by refusing to lend her money, reminding him this is the notorious Maha Guild filled with C-rank hunters. She cheerfully asks the guild members to give her a good price for him, prompting the men to admire his solid build. One member remarks that he looks like a beggar with no family, making him perfect for slave traders. Wang Pei just breaks into a knowing, sinister grin on the floor. Noticing his expression, the baffled captors ask if he has completely lost his mind. Jin Mu tells a masked man he's actually relieved seeing that trash like him hasn't changed at all in this new world. Enraged, the masked man yells back that he's just a slave about to be sold and tells him to know his place. Jin Mu smiles darkly, remarking that since it's him, he can test out his new power without any guilt. Smiling with glowing eyes, he says he can finally test his fist without any guilt. The masked fighter reacts in total confusion, asking what is going on. A traditional building stands peacefully before a sudden massive shockwave rips through it. The roof shatters completely under an overwhelming blast of raw destructive force. Debris flies everywhere as the entire structure caves in from the devastating impact. She gasps in disbelief as the ceiling above her starts to splinter apart. Alice watches in shock amidst the rising dust and falling rubble. The guild members stumble through the dust, wondering what just hit them. Everyone stares in shock at the fallen fighter lying defeated on the ground. Alice suddenly shouts out in realization, claiming she has finally figured it out. Someone nearby gasps that it was the guild leader's skill, leaving him totally confused. His follower praises the incredible speed of his club swing, but the guild leader wonders if he even moved. He plays along with a laugh, warning himself not to use such destructive skills too carelessly. Down on the ground, the defeated man lies motionless, with a tense expression. His eyes suddenly snap open as he plots his next move from the floor. Channeling his energy, he prepares to unleash a sudden counterattack, right where he lies. Suddenly, a profound shock hits as Jinguan reacts with alarm. Caught off guard, the children freeze in sudden shock. He realizes that throwing a punch right here would completely devastate the entire area. Energy swirls around his hand as he prepares to unleash his strength. Knowing once a punch is thrown it can never be taken back, he hesitates. He grips his fist tighter as resolve hardens on his face. Realizing the sheer destructive scale, he resolves that all he can do is redirect the blow. He unleashes a massive explosive shockwave that blasts upward with incredible force. The terrifying blast crashes directly into the massive roof of the towering building above. A bearded observer watches the devastation unfold with a faint, amused smile, calling it interesting. Jinguan mutters that strength isn't everything, leaving his captors wondering if he lost his mind before telling someone to patch him up for tomorrow's slave market. Inside a dark stone prison cell, a small barred window looks out onto the night sky. Jinguan worries that innocent people will get hurt if he keeps swinging like this, wondering how to restrain his overwhelming fist. Breaking the quiet, Jinguan turns to his cell neighbor to introduce himself. Alice replies with her name, which Jinguan immediately finds rather strange. Munching on a rice ball, Jinguan complains that getting sold out for a cheap snack is stingy and he deserved some meat. Alice grips her head in disbelief, asking him if he has any clue what is actually going on around them. Alice yells at Jinguan in frustration, demanding to know why he isn't even angry after she tricked him. He calmly asks if everything is settled, leaving her momentarily speechless and sweating. Alice defends her actions, insisting she genuinely needs the money because her sister is really sick. She looks down with a cold expression, declaring she won't feel sorry at all. She reasons that in this harsh world, everyone believes that getting tricked makes you the fool. A flashback shows a masked figure taking bags of money from a kneeling young Alice. The masked figure mocks that getting tricked is for fools. Back in the present, Alice trembles as she tries to justify her cold world view. She reflects on how she thought everything had changed, but gasps in shock as she realizes something. Jin Guan smiles from his cell and asks if he will be helping cure her sister, leaving Alice stunned before he casually says that's enough. Jin Guan tells Alice she doesn't need to apologize since he offered to help first. He adds that she just needs to make sure her sister gets cured because failing to protect family brings the worst regret. Alice blushes and looks away. Flustered, she snaps back at him, but Jin Guan points out she's being pretty harsh to someone who's helping her. Alice asks him for a favor in return, telling him to hold on to the book he brought until he comes back for it. He agrees to keep it, though she complains about the smell and insists she won't hold on to it for long. She tells him he better hurry back as a carriage rolls away through the trees. Driving through a creepy forest, one of the guards complains about the eerie atmosphere. When another guard asks why their base is so isolated, he gets snapped at. It's all to hide their illegal slave trading from the Hunter Association. Even so, traveling right through a dangerous monster habitat feels like a suicide mission. After a bumpy ride, they finally arrive at their destination. The guards start shoving the captives out of the cart, prompting someone inside to demand an explanation for all the noise. A guard reports to a superior that the new slaves have arrived in great shape, adding that the Maha Guild threw in an exceptionally large and sturdy specimen this time. Hearing this, a grotesque slave trader licks his lips in eager anticipation. Back outside, the guards bark harsh orders at the prisoners, threatening to break the limbs of anyone who drags their feet. Someone barks orders to feed the captives well for the auction, leaving Jin Guan staring in total confusion. Then someone insists on thorough hair washes to keep buyers' appetites up, while another captive gets scrubbed down with a blank stare. Because bad smells are even worse, the guards demand all merchandise smells sweet, and Jin Guan just sweats it out with a bewildered look. Jin Guan kicks back in a tub, happily figuring that washing away 10 years of dirt isn't the worst deal. He wonders if being a slave is actually great, until a voice nearby points out how weird it is for a prisoner to smile like that. Jin Guan turns around and gets stunned to see the old peddler standing right there who greets him like it is destiny. Jin Guan asks if he is just a peddler, but the old man hands over a towel and explains that he holds over 10 different odd jobs. The elderly man says people call him Sip Jap Su because of his endless gigs, and Jin Guan finally introduces himself in return. As Sip Jap Su laments that it is a shame, Jin Guan wonders why, pointing out that getting fed and washed makes it seem like a nice place, though Sip Jap Su warns him that something terrifying awaits him once the bath ends. A guard stands nearby. Myong Chung wanders into the room in confusion, demanding to know why they still haven't branded the prisoner. He catches Jin Mu putting his clothes back on and yells at him to explain himself, but Jin Mu just casually hesitates. Jin Mu cheerfully announces that he is going to pass on getting branded. He reasons that his body is a precious gift from his parents that cannot be harmed, shattering his heavy iron chains with sheer muscle pressure while a guard angrily tells him to sit down. The guard stumbles back in utter shock. Jin Mu casually grabs the guard and drags him along, thanking everyone for their hard work as the terrified guard yells at him to stop. Myong Chung watches in sheer disbelief before screaming at the top of his lungs to catch that bastard. Looking up at a grand ornate ceiling, Jin Guan ponders his next move. Stunned by the sheer size of the massive mansion, Jin Guan spots familiar faces and immediately asks them for directions. Though nervous, the trembling attendants agree to show the way together, though Jin Guan notices something is heavy. It turns out the attendants are being dragged down by a whole chain of people, clinging desperately to each other, making Jin Guan quickly change his mind about the route. Reaching the main entrance while dragging everyone along, Jin Guan marvels at the scale of the place before a sudden shout warns him that escape is useless. An obese slave trader bursts out with his guards, boasting that he anticipated an escape attempt all along. Myong Chung shows up right on cue, bragging that he's hired as the heavy hitter for this exact mess. He launches into a long, smug speech about his own greatness, flashing a massive grin right before things go south. Before he can even finish bragging, the guys turn around in sheer terror, wondering where on earth the Lord went. Before the poor guy can even finish his sentence, a massive B-rank mountain bear drops in out of nowhere. The beast tears through Myong Chung in a single blow, sending everyone else into a blind panic as they scream that they're doomed. While the others run for their lives in total terror, Jin Am just stands there calmly, studying the bizarrely built monster. Ignoring the rampaging beast completely, Jin Am casually wonders if that guy is taking good care of his book. Down in the city streets at night, Alice walks along the empty rooftops. She looks down over the edge, carrying a heavy burden on her mind. Alice stands alone in the dark alleyway, lost in her thoughts. She stands silently in the street, worrying that she promised to bring back medicine today. Suddenly, someone calls out to her from behind. Jin-guan drops down from above asking about his book, startling her so much she can't believe he actually escaped. He casually explains that they simply let him walk right out. Before he can finish asking about her sister, a sudden fit of coughing interrupts them. Alice bursts through the door, yelling out in sheer panic to check if her sister's all right. Her coughing sister wheezes out that she told her to come home early, but Alice tells her to save her breath and stop talking. Even right then, Alice awkwardly blurts out a question about where her missing book went because it means everything to her. Before she gets an answer, the sixth sister notices someone else in the room and whispers that they have a visitor. The long-haired visitor introduces himself as Yang So-hai, Alice's older sister, politely apologizing for greeting them while sitting due to poor health. Jin-am narrows his eyes in sharp suspicion as something catches his attention. He instantly senses a strange energy radiating from her, realizing it feels way too foreign and unpleasant to be normal martial arts. Yang breaks down in tears, crying that they took everything, from the money meant for her cure down to the sacred book. He looks down on the ground. Alice gasps out in pain from the brutal beating. Standing over her with a spiked club, Hyundai coldly lists the ridiculous fees and interest to clean her out. As she groans in agony, he tosses her a measly 30 gold and calls it her share. Furious and desperate, Alice glares up at him and curses him out as a cheap crook. A small money pouch drops to the floor next to her on the pavement. Refusing to accept total loss, she begs to at least go grab her luggage over there. Hyundai snorts at that, pointing out that her belongings belong to him since its owner is right in his hands. His cronies burst out laughing right behind him, mocking her as a total idiot. Without warning, Hyundai boots her viciously in the face, sending her crashing back down with a loud gasp. He notes grimly that in this harsh world, the weak get crushed without mercy. A flashback shows a helpless young captive kneeling on the ground next to a spilled bag of coins. He points fiercely at the kneeling thief, yelling that the victim of a trick is the idiot and ordering her to get out. Then, as Alice breaks down in desperate tears, someone off-panel cruelly suggests she sell her body instead for a high price. Moments later, a quiet apology is whispered nearby, reflecting a deep sense of guilt over what happened. Yang So-hai apologizes for failing to get the belongings back, while Jin-am stands silent with a grim expression. Down below, Jin-am watches the scene unfold with quiet intensity. Jin-am grabs the two young women by the shoulders, demanding if they finally understand the situation. Yang So-hai whimpers that even in a world where the tricked person is deemed the idiot, the cruelty goes too far. Jin-am warns them that deceiving others comes with a heavy price, telling them to behave from now on as Yang So-hai gasps in shock. Yang So-hai blushes while asking Jin-guan what his relationship with her sister is. Jin-guan simply replies that they have a bit of history together. He admits he's partly to blame for her sister missing out on the medicine, but reassures her he will go get it with her. Yang So-hai asks if she can safely entrust her sister to him. Jin-guan agrees, but demands a single promise in return. He tells her to hang in there against her illness, because he will be back soon. Jin-guan suddenly tells Alice it is time to move, leaving her totally confused. He declares they are going to recover her money and his stolen book. Alice questions if they are heading to the wrong spot as they stand outside a building at night. Alice explains that this entrance leads straight to the real headquarters. She adds that they act like a normal guild during daytime hours. Once night falls, however, the place transforms into a massive black market gambling ring. Alice hands Jin-guan a cloak so they can hide their faces while sneaking around inside. She points out the most famous attraction waiting for them. As gamblers crowd the tables below, Alice singles out a specific game. Players loudly push their chips forward to go all in. Instead of cards, the main attraction turns out to be brutal bare-knuckle slap fights. Jiok Yan is stunned to learn that people actually gamble by taking turns slapping each other. Her companion confirms that the whole place runs on that game, right before someone startles them by asking who they are. A familiar voice chimes in from behind, announcing that they knew it was them after hearing a familiar tone. Elder pops up offering a beer and talking about destiny, but Jin-am bluntly tells him his destiny is seriously messed up. Jin-am looks over the guy's bizarre outfit and wonders out loud if there's no longer a line between men's and women's clothing. Looking at Alice's thoroughly disgusted reaction, he quickly decides to drop it and never mind. Elder mutters about how convenient this setup is compared to getting a real job, then goes right back to explaining the slap fighting tournament. Down below on the red carpet, two massive competitors stand across from each other at a wooden table. Elder explains the rules where they take turns delivering brutal slaps, and whoever fails to take the hit loses on the spot. Geok-eon wonders if the fighters bet money and the winner takes everything. Jin-am confirms it, warning that jumping into that arena without care is a quick way to die. A close-up captures a masked face staring intensely. The announcer praises Han Dae for knocking out an undefeated challenger with a single slap, while the mask-wearing guildmaster taunts the crowd for someone stronger. Han Dae stands tall with his Oni mask roaring in confidence. Recognizing Han Dae as the guildmaster who holds his stolen book, Jin Guan realizes he needs cash to gamble his way back in. He turns to ask Alice for spare cash, but immediately thinks better of it and drops the question. The elder stands awkwardly between the companions. Jin Guan reminds the elder of his earlier talk about fate, leaving the older man completely confused. Leaning in with a menacing grin, Jin Guan brings up fate, prompting the elder to point out that he looks straight out of a mugging. Jin Guan argues that his eyes are merely those of a pitiful junior asking for help. Insisting this is pure sponsorship rather than extortion, Jin Guan secures the money bag while Alice looks on with a silent smile. The reigning champion gloats over his defeated opponents, demanding more challengers and even families as wagers, while the host hypes up the brutal dominance. Suddenly, a heavy bag of money slams onto the floor as a cloaked voice asks if betting cash is enough to join. The host excitedly announces the arrival of a brand new challenger stepping into the ring. Stepping forward from the shadows, Jin Guan simply accepts the bet. The masked champion recognizes Jin Guan from the slave market, but Jin Guan immediately demands to know who has his stolen book. Laughing off the challenge, the champion mocks Jin Guan as trash, while the host nervously asks how they should decide who strikes first. Bragging arrogantly, the masked fighter tells the scrawny slave to throw the opening punch right at him. The surrounding crowd bursts into laughter, mocking Jin Guan as a complete idiot who is about to get sold off all over again. With a cold and steady gaze, Jin Guan quietly searches for a way through. Knowing his immense power could hurt innocent people, he searches for a way to control his overwhelming strength. He reasons that while a perfect fist multiplies power, swinging it normally destroys everything around him. Wondering what would happen if he tried the exact opposite, he unleashes a sweeping motion. Onlookers stare in absolute shock at the sudden display. Others watch with wide eyes as the ground collapses beneath the impact. He crashes heavily into the floor, leaving a crater behind. Alice asks if that was a slap, but someone immediately denies it. He grins, explaining that he developed a new fist technique to disperse great energy instead. Jin Guan dismisses his own technique with a grin, pointing out that it is essentially just a slap. Right after claiming he has won and demanding his money, the announcer can only stutter in pure shock. Panic sets in as the bald man immediately screams for everyone to draw their swords and stop him from leaving. Instead of running, Jin Guan casually asks where his luggage is while armed thugs rush forward shouting to kill him. Seeing the mob charge straight at him, Jin Guan figures this works out perfectly. The unlucky fighter crashes hard onto the ground, completely knocked out. As guards collapse all around him, Jin Guan notes that using the power a few more times is helping him control it. Jin-am demands to know if his luggage and the prize money are safe, and Alice stutters out a quick yes. Alice stares in shock, realizing it was no lie that he actually escaped those dangerous slave traders. Jin-am turns around and asks what she is doing. Jin-am tells everyone to get moving so they can grab the medicine for her sister. Alice gasps at the sheer size of the clinic, thrilled that they finally made it. Alice expresses her deep gratitude to the elder, who beams and praises his enduring righteousness. Jin-am brushes off the praise and tells them to just keep moving. Jin-am slowly pushes open the heavy wooden door. A foul smell hits Jin-am as his father sits laughing in a wooden tub while a young boy gagging on the floor. His father declares that he is truly his son, though a real man should easily endure that stench. As the father hurls in the tub, his son looks on and remarks that the guy really is his old man, wondering what on earth is going on. Pinching his nose against the stench, the young man asks why his father is sitting in a cesspool, but his dad just explains it is his biggest regret as a martial artist. The muscular father laments that because his sense of smell is way too sharp, he couldn't stand the foul stench and failed to achieve a body impervious to all poisons. Fed up, the dad leaps out of the tub and splashes filthy water everywhere, making his son yell in disgust while asking why he even bothered doing it in the first place. Declaring that the smell is way too strong, the father heads for the exit as his son mutters that he recognizes that exact scent. A hooded figure emerges from the dark, welcoming late-night guests and asking if they are there to buy med. As the night sets in, Jinam explains that he's treating more plague patients because their numbers keep climbing. He notes that nobody's died yet, but the plague has already spread through the whole village, leaving Alice completely shocked. Even so, Jinam remarks with a slight smile that it's a huge relief they actually have a working cure. Those ingredients are super rare nowadays, involving snow ginseng, a blue-red snake, and jade bee honey to brew the legendary yin-yang pill. Jinam proudly notes that in the new era of Marim, they can use skills to craft elixirs even without those supreme ingredients. He hands over a medicine pouch, telling the patient he added energy-restoring herbs, and gets a grateful thank you in return. Alice holds her medicine pouch with a soft smile. Jinam tells her it's no big deal, but insists she keeps taking the medicine until she makes a full recovery. As Jinam keeps talking, he nervously mentions what she should do if she feels pain anywhere else. The elderly patient interrupts to ask if he needs anything else, right before Alice yells out in anger at what's happening. Jinguan smiles and says he is just browsing the interesting herbs. Alice apologizes to the doctor, but he drops bad news that the medicine price is jumping due to sky-high demand. As they head back, Jinguan thanks Alice for helping him get the medicine. Alice panics because the money that was supposed to last a month is already gone. She turns to Jinguan, asking in despair what they are going to do next week. Jinguan suddenly grabs her bag, leaving her shocked and demanding to know what he is doing. He stays silent for a moment. Jinguan opens the pouch, saying he needs to check something. He takes a berry from the bag and tastes it. Alice completely freaks out over what just happened, screaming about the cost, but Jinmu just shrugs and explains he is running low on energy because he has been helping someone lately. Yang So-hai calls it a total waste while Jinmu tells her not to be so stingy, leaving Elder just staring in silence. Elder lets out a sudden realization as things start to click. Yang So-hai gently places a small pill to her lips. A warm glow instantly washes over her as her health recovers. Alice grabs Jinmu's hands with immense relief, telling him how glad and thankful she is. Tears stream down Alice's face as she calls out Jinguan's name in overwhelming emotion. She thanks him sincerely for agreeing to such a selfish request. Yang So-hai joins in, expressing her deepest gratitude from the bottom of her heart to the young hero. Jinguan expresses his deep gratitude with a loud thanks. Someone replies in agreement, asking if they can add meat to the rice balls next time. An exterior view of a traditional tiled roof building stands under a bright daytime sky. Jinguan pauses to ponder while holding a snack in his hand. He takes a bite, enthusiastically declaring that it tastes great and is definitely better with meat. Sip Japsu spots him up on the roof, and Jinguan replies that the high view makes the food taste even better. Jinguan asks about Alice, and Yang So-hai replies that she is fast asleep after failing to rest properly for days. A mysterious figure steps quietly onto the elevated platform under an open sky. Jinguan figures the old man is a martial artist too, but Sip Japsu laughs it off. He explains he is just a retired guy trying to survive by juggling 10 different jobs. Then Sip Japsu drops a bomb, saying he caught Jinguan handling the medicine earlier. The elderly man watches closely with a sly expression as the situation unfolds. He bluntly states he saw Jinguan swap out the medicine pouches. Sip Japsu teases him for having sticky fingers and wonders if he stole a matching pouch from the apothecary. The old peddler asks how the stolen goods tasted when Jinguan tried them out. Jinguan just smiles calmly, asking if the old man is completely sure it's a fake. Someone notes that extreme poison can double as medicine, but explains that this specific herb only eases pain while acting as an addictive poison. The woman with long dark hair explains she swapped it out with a different herb from the apothecary earlier. She figures it would break that child to find out the truth. Yang So-hai and Alice hold hands closely while shedding tears together. As someone mentions the shock of finding out their medicine was actually poison, the elder calls the black-haired man chivalrous for sparing them that despair, but he deflects the praise right back. The elder remarks that old age brings curiosity about everything, adding that he's become very interested in him right now. Night falls over the quiet rooftops of the ancient village under a cloudy sky. A figure in a dark coat hands over this month's payment inside a dimly lit room. Jinam hands over the goods, smugly assuring the masked man he added extra before nervously asking when his organization registration goes through. The masked guards fire back that selling medicine has made him too smooth-tongued, telling him not to rush straight to the main point. He hands over the first batch with a grin, and the subordinate politely takes it. He drops into a cold sweat as he inspects the goods. Jinam points out the count is slightly off, but the guard immediately shuts him down, saying it is completely correct. The masked man explains that mana stone distribution has dropped lately, demanding double the tribute if he wants his usual amount. Jinam is told he needs to show serious sincerity if they are going to pitch his membership to the higher-ups. He politely thanks them for the advice before mentioning the recent slave market attack, warning it could be an assault on the organization, so he better keep quiet. The masked figure leans in with a dark threat, warning that any information leak will have severe consequences. The guard glares with a glowing red eye, driving the warning home. A masked figure bids someone a safe trip back as they depart. Then a bag is tossed down onto the surface with force. Gritting his teeth in fury over being exploited, he vows to pay back this humiliation tenfold once he gets into the organization. He freezes in place as someone suddenly speaks up. He quickly catches himself, flashing a grin as he apologizes for his unsightly behavior in front of his unexpected guest. Jin Guan sits calmly on a stool, noting that the medicine earlier was not enough since his guest sneaked back to steal more in the dead of night. Warning that taking medicine so recklessly can turn it into poison, Jin Guan is brushed off with a casual smile as the man replies that he has a strong stomach. With a wide grin, the person with shoulder-length gray hair says it is a relief as long as the medicine gets paid for. The man with long dark hair turns the tables, telling him that this time he should be paying because he brought a powerful medicine just for him. Confused, the person with short gray hair asks what that means. The man with long dark hair holds out a handful of dark pills, stating he found the perfect remedy. He adds that for a con artist, the most effective medicine is simply a good beating. Eyes glowing red, the man with long gray hair smiles back, warning that turning a blind eye is sometimes the best medicine. As he reaches into his jacket, he starts to say that is. Jin Guan launches a flurry of deadly poison needles, warning that it is a matter of life or death. The target realizes with shock that these homing needles will not stop until they hit him. With blinding speed, the fighter deflects and catches every single projectile mid-air. Jin Guan stands completely stunned as he watches his opponent catch the entire barrage. He can barely believe his eyes that someone managed to catch them using only bare hands. Caught off guard, Jin Guan stares in total disbelief at the impossible feat. Jin Am unleashes a powerful blast that sends an opponent flying backward. Stunned and battered, the injured fighter crashes to the ground and demands to know what just hit him. Groaning in pain, Myong Chung asks if such a strong fighter was always around, while Jin Am demands to know why he uses life-saving needles to kill. Inspecting the discarded needles, Jin Am notes that while their underlying energy is weak, their movement is remarkably ingenious. He watches the flying needles closely, admiring the clever technique behind the attack. Wondering if it is a skill or a neat trick, Jin Am smirks and decides the opponent needs to be taught some manners. Myong Chung picks himself up and politely asks the young hero which organization he belongs to. Jin Am tells him to pick a tone and drop the honorifics, adding that he won't be able to speak at all in a moment. Observing his swift movements and lack of presence, Myong Chung wonders if Jin Am is an assassin, though he notices a total lack of weapons. Looking at him with a serious expression, he asks if he's a pugilist. Jin Guan replies that he doesn't know about any pugilist and simply states his name. Realizing his opponent is at least B rank or higher, he panics at the thought of fighting a pugilist. Surrounded by swirling dark energy, he convinces himself that he holds the absolute advantage. He unleashes an apothecary skill called Poison Blood Torrent, but Jin Guan just complains that it smells like pure sewage. Jin Guan immediately starts coughing violently, gasping in shock as the toxic fumes hit him. Stumbling through the toxic haze while coughing, he notes that a pugilist's strength supposedly lies in their eyes and breathing. He grins and reasons that a blinded and suffocating pugilist is totally helpless. He leaps through the air, declaring that his opponent is nothing more than a durable scarecrow. With glowing eyes, he warns that he will make him the very first to witness his brand new skill. He unleashes a massive poison vortex that surges forward with overwhelming destructive force. He stands amidst the swirling purple energy with a sharp grin on his face. He states with a cold smirk that it is only fair to return what he has received. Jin Guan calmly replies that he will show his own technique. Jin Guan grimaces in agony, clutching his wounded hand as pain overwhelms him. Jin Mu complains about the foul stench making him sick right before darting away. Moments later, he lunges forward with a bloody hand, dashing swiftly across the floor. Jin Guan wonders if a pugilist skill uses fingers, reading a system notification for the apothecary first aid skill. Jin Mu smirks, telling him that this is not just some ordinary skill. He explains that it is a technique he created himself, combining finger and fist. Jinmu demonstrates the stance using his fingers. Jinmu names his custom technique the finger fist. The young man fires back that his opponent talks too much nonsense, arguing he has never heard of any skill sounding like it is straight out of a comic book. His target simply tells him it is not a skill at all, leaving him gasping in sudden pain. With a wide grin, the long-haired fighter casually names the bizarre move as the finger fist. Struggling to comprehend, the shaken fighter stammers that he still has never heard of such a technique. Before he can finish his thought, another invisible blow crashes into him with a sharp grunt. Repeating his strange stance, the long-haired fighter calmly reminds him it is called the finger fist, while his opponent stays silent. The opponent stares blankly as a finger reaches right toward him. Finally snapping, the furious fighter yells at the bastard to stop mocking him for so long. Mocking his opponent's weak voice, the dark-haired pugilist points out that peak masters can easily subdue enemies using just their fingers. Realizing what is happening, the light-haired fighter panics as he instantly recognizes acupoint striking and figures out his attacker is a martial artist. Refusing to fall for ancient tricks, the gray-haired fighter resolves to guard his acupoints and immediately launch a counterattack. Launching a finger strike to paralyze the upper body, he catches his opponent off guard and leaves him gasping in shock. He unleashes a rapid succession of precision strikes targeting the wrist and elbow, declaring it is meant to teach some manners. With a ferocious grin, he keeps relentlessly attacking with his signature finger strikes. The brutal assault lands heavily, forcing a painful cry from the stricken fighter. Standing victorious over his collapsed foe, the master notes that old sayings are right, having successfully silenced him with just his fingers. The defeated opponent stammers in absolute disbelief, calling him a crazy bastard as he catches his breath. He rants that pure brute force is doing all the stabbing, but his rival just replies that there is a reason. With a wide, smug grin, Jin Guan explains that he simply decided to call his brutal technique that name. Jin Guan recalls a strict personal vow made during rigorous training never to lose in anything, covering martial arts, character, and looks. He even includes rock, paper, scissors in that list, leaving his captive opponent staring in pure bewilderment at his sudden shift in attitude. Jin Guan smugly remarks that he should have played rock to beat the finger fist, adding that rock would have met his 4 great fists anyway. Reaching a breaking point of rage, the captive hunter bares his teeth and demands to know how much longer he will be mocked as a B rank. He notes that he's powered up using all the mana stones he's gathered. He unleashes his true power through the apothecary special skill, poison blood release. Laughing wildly, he brags that this terrifying new power far surpasses B rank and hits A rank. Surrounded by a chaotic aura, he warns that he's about to show his absolute power. He finishes his declaration, stepping forward as waves of intense energy wash over the ground. He grits his teeth and takes a sharp breath, bracing himself for the clash. A blinding flash of light erupts as he unleashes a massive wave of energy. Caught off guard, Jin Guan reacts in sheer shock. He stares wide-eyed and sweating as his technique misses a beat. Panic sets in as he wonders what just happened to his own body. Then Jinmu casually steps in, admitting he got startled. Clutching his chest in disbelief, Jin Guan realizes he somehow survived an explosion that should have blown him apart. Jinmu mocks his failed attempt, asking if he wants to try again. Remind him of his grand speech about true power, Jinmu challenges him to keep going while Jin Guan glares back in teeth-gritting silence. Jin Guan grits his teeth in a tense close-up. A heavy fist clenches tight as tension fills the air. Someone watches closely with wide, nervous eyes. Suddenly, Bake bows low and greets him as Lord, leaving him totally confused. Sunlight streams down over the quiet, traditional rooftops. Dark vapor escapes from the patient's mouth. Elder explains that he drew out the poison and used acupuncture. Bake remarks that the plague was just cheap poison, assuring that energy levels are barely affected. The patient rests quietly on the bed. Bake proudly holds up a freshly brewed pill, telling her to take it for a quick recovery. Elder realizes Bake is an apothecary rather than a normal doctor, though Jin Guan has no idea what that actually means. An explanation notes that awakened hunters unlock standard classes like swordsmen or mages, but rare classes like apothecaries give advanced mastery over medicine and poison. Bake praises Elder for his vast knowledge and proudly declares himself a uniquely gifted individual. Alice immediately shuts Bake down with a brutal chop to the head, leaving him gasping in pain. She reminds him that he is just a criminal who poisoned an entire village, asking him what he has to be proud of. Bake glares up at her with pure fury ready to snap. Jin Guan steps in with a menacing grin and threatens him with a lethal acupoint strike, instantly draining all of Bake's bravado. Completely intimidated, Baek immediately bows low and offers a humble apology. Alice yells at him in disbelief, demanding to know how he plans to make up for his actions. Jin Am asks Jin Guan why someone with such rare talent and skill would do something like that. Jin Guan just stares back in silence. The gray-haired man just stands there quietly, keeping his gaze fixed downward without a single word. Jin Guan holds out a handful of broken crystal shards, explaining that mana stones have replaced all energy sources since the gate conflict. Thanks to those stones, impossible skyscrapers were built, and all progress in the new Murim relies on them. Hunters are obsessed with mana stones because they grant power that transcends standard ranks, making countless people desperate to get them. Baek points out that since mana stones only form in high-density areas or powerful monsters in tiny amounts, paying a black market tribute for them is an offer no hunter can refuse. Alice asks what happens to all the money they have paid so far. Baek replies that it was all paid away as tribute. Alice flies into a rage, demanding her money back, while Elder tells her to calm down since it's their only way to recover anything. Baek scoffs at the C ranks, calling them foolish for trying to chase down what is already gone. Furious at the insult, Alice lashes out with an angry outburst. Baek stands silently in the room as the group closes in around him. Baek clutches a collection of ornate jewelry around his neck, declaring that it is his father's keepsake. Caught off guard, Alice quickly stumbles back and begs to talk things out. Baek rubs his bruised face, explaining that finding the rest will be tough because he already handed everything over to some higher-ups. When asked about those higher-ups, Baek stammers and hesitates to name them. Jin Guan narrows his eyes in silence, sizing up the situation. Baek glares back without a word, taking in the heavy atmosphere. With a grim grin, Jin Guan agrees to let Baek guide him straight to those bastards' meeting place. Baek points out that those guys only act tough because they have the backing of the Red Blood Alliance. Jin Guan asks what Red Blood Alliance means, leaving Baek stunned that he has never even heard of them. Alice throws her hands up in disbelief, asking how he could possibly not know about such a huge faction. Shadowy silhouettes gather around a table as the discussion turns to the 4 heavenly kings of the new Murim. A menacing giant snake looms behind Jin. The mafia operates as a stealthy criminal network in Yeonmu, using secret bases and compartmentalized cells. They became the top syndicate not just through illegal mana stone trafficking, but thanks to the backing of a heavenly king. Jin Mu asks if they really know nothing about the Red Blood Alliance, known as the Incarnation of the Blade. Baek Mundu suggests that reaching the top requires a powerful backer, leading Jin Mu to agree. Jin Mu realizes a heavenly king stands behind the mafia, while Baek Mundo panics at the sudden terrifying aura. Alice stares in absolute shock as the crushing weight hits them. She stammers out if this overwhelming pressure is real killing intent. Jin Guan stares with wide glowing eyes as a deep memory flashes before him. His father calls out to him, reminding him that the power he is being taught isn't meant for hurting people. He continues that the strength is certainly not meant to be used for petty revenge either. A young Jin Guan looks up attentively, absorbing every word his teacher shares. The elder explains that responsibility matters above all, requiring a will strong enough not to be consumed. Clenching his fist, Jin Guan reflects that, despite spending a decade learning everything, that single lesson remains the hardest. He lowers his hand, admitting to himself how heavy those simple words truly are. With a subtle smile, Jin Guan whispers that he just found one more reason to see this through to the end. Turning around, Jin Guan tells someone to lead the way to the meeting point, and a subordinate hastily agrees. They arrive before a grand traditional building under the open sky. As he calmly holds a cup of tea, Jin Guan asks if they are really supposed to meet inside this clinic. Baek Mundu reports to Jin Guan that the mafia shows up like clockwork at dawn on every full moon. Jin Guan simply replies that he sees how it is, leaving everyone else sitting in tense silence. Alice completely loses her patience, demanding to know why they are getting along and why anyone is calling him Lord. Jin Guan just sweats it out and admits he has no idea either. Jin Guan brushes off the title entirely, stating his real name and asking why his former captive is suddenly acting so overly polite. When asked if he has any more details, Baek Mundu casually admits that is the extent of his knowledge. Baek Mundu grins and notes that there is at least one fact he knows for sure. He explains that during the last tribute collection, those bastards were fuming because some maniac wrecked the mafia slave market. Baek Mundu stands quietly next to a masked mafia member in a dimly lit room. Jin Guan smugly laughs it off, figuring whoever pulled that stunt must be losing sleep while comparing himself to a righteous hero. Baek Mundu turns serious, warning that valuable mana stones will attract unwanted attention and trigger rival syndicates. Someone questions whether he's really planning to take on the mafia head-on, and more importantly, why he'd even bother. He answers that it's simply because it pisses him off, seeing low-life swagger around his hometown. Taken aback by that blunt reason, he moves on to business, asking his senior if he knows anything else about their structure. The elder replies that while he doesn't know the full structure, big money always pools in dark corners. Seizing the moment, he shamelessly hires the elder for free and tells Yundu to go grab a matching mafia outfit. He then tells Alice to go with the apothecary to treat the sick and keep an eye on him, leaving her stammering. Looking up at a grand tower, someone wonders what he's planning to do with all that money. Inside, a hooded figure walks into a room where people bow, noting that today's consultations are already finished. A wide-brimmed warrior stares down with a stern expression. The masked figure steps forward and asks what brings him back. The masked leader asks if he really knows who is standing before him. Bake Mundo panics, asking if he plans to go after them personally. Bake Mundu leans forward in a tense, anxious posture. He warns that their enemies operate through scattered cells and connections are unpredictable. Jin Mu answers that checking for himself is precisely why he is going. The guard stutters, pointing out that he had already visited just 2 days ago. Sweating profusely, the guard stammers that he will run inside and spread the word right away. Jin Mu calmly notes that the situation requires a different approach. Clenching his fist, Jin Mu declares that blocking every rat hole forces the rats out. He repeats that they will have no choice but to show themselves. A towering traditional multi-tiered pagoda stands tall under a clear sky. Debris flies through the air as a massive blast shatters the ground. Startled by the blast, Jinguan and Alice stare in disbelief and ask what just blew up. Realizing what happened, Jinguan points out that the loan shark's building just exploded. Bake Mundu chuckles with amusement, wondering if that masked guy caused the whole thing. Elder stands in the smoke, completely speechless at the absolute scale of the destruction. The narrator marvels at such overwhelming power from someone barely over 20, noting his steel comes from pure martial arts instead of a skill. Walking away from the chaos, Jin Mu remarks that you see everything if you live long enough, and prepares for his next target. Jin Mu pauses because something is bothering him, prompting Bake Mundu to ask if something is wrong. Bake Mundu points out that, as Mundo mentioned earlier, the power and value of mana stones in this world are immeasurable. Someone points out that strict association rules keep the peace, but if the mafia has the Red Blood Alliance behind them, everything changes. Jin Am reasons that this goes way beyond petty crime since world peace depends entirely on the pact between the Hunter Association and the 4 Heavenly Kings. He adds that whether that alliance is actually involved or not, they need to find out. They decide to check for themselves, striding forward with Elder to investigate. Meanwhile, one of the men turns around in utter confusion as someone approaches from behind. With a terrifying grin and glowing red eyes, the masked intruder springs a sudden pop quiz. The startled target stammers in disbelief, asking if he isn't with the mafia. That right answer triggers an explosive blast that completely wrecks the building. Explosions tear through the area as the Thieves Guild crashes the scene, announcing themselves as a coalition of black marketeers who refuse to be left out. Townsfolk whisper about how the mood has shifted because of a mysterious masked hero in black robes wiping out violent guilds. Locals praise the nameless guest as the true hero of this era, ranking him even higher than S-rank hunters. Citizens passionately cheer for their town's one and only masked savior. The masked figure stands in silence. At a high-level briefing, leaders report that both the southern and northern branches have been completely wiped out. Xian Wu Tan points out that someone must have leaked their branch locations and uniforms from upper management. Xian Wu Tan, Mafia Rank 2 and A-Rank Hunter, suspects a rat is hiding among them. Nan Hang questions calling the targets rats over some uniforms and wonders if Xian Wu Tan is to blame. She presses further, pointing out that if the branches got smashed, Xian Wu Tan clearly failed his job as manager. Suddenly, a commanding voice cuts through the argument, telling everyone that is enough. The masked figure demands to know how they still have no idea what the intruder looks like, and to make matters worse, nobody even knows what skill the person used against them. Calling them utterly useless for failing to handle a single pest, the leader chews them out. Seizing the opening, Nanyang steps up with a smile to ask if she can take on the mission herself. She sneers that she has more confidence than someone who let the branches get attacked and learn nothing. Xian Wu Tan glares back from behind, silently fuming at the insult. Someone tells Nanyang that this target is hers. demanding they bring him back breathing so he can deal the finishing blow himself. As the masked figure agrees, Jinmu smirks and remarks that anyone who gets hit will always come back wanting more answers. Alice worries about causing such a huge commotion, warning him that even an A rank can get overwhelmed if enough B ranks team up. Jinmu just laughs it off, claiming 100 ants are nothing compared to a tiger, leaving Alice sweating at his utter insanity. Baekmundu grins, mocking why they came to such a respectable place if they were just going to bring lowlifes along. Outside the Maha Guild headquarters, a voice challenges whether that building is really meant for lowlifes. Inside, Hande's subordinates get fired up, shouting that everything is set and the long-awaited day of revenge has finally arrived. Hande seethes, vowing that the humiliation of his past beating will be washed away and that he won't fall for any more tricks. Elsewhere, someone complains that his opponent cheated in a sacred slap fight and calls him a cheap bastard. His allies hype him up for payback, confident that his raise-the-arm skill will leave the enemy with zero chance to level up. They express total belief in their boss, but he suddenly stops in confusion. A sudden scream echoes as the men react in sheer panic. They stand frozen in shock as someone approaches. One of the fighters points out in terror that it is actually him. Hande glares with a furious, murderous aura, screaming that he found that damn beggar. With an awkward cough, the confrontation takes an abrupt turn. Jinam stands in silence while Jingguan catches him off guard. Jingguan flashes a chilling grin, telling him that manners learned through the body are never forgotten. And from now on, this is how they will greet each other. Jinam stares back completely baffled, wondering what on earth is going on. Jingguan effortlessly sweeps in and drops his opponent hard onto a chair. Hande orders someone to spread the word right now, leaving Jingguan staring in shock before declaring that as caught off guard, Hande asks what was just said. Sweating nervously, he stammers that he didn't quite catch it. Mukyang replies flatly that he heard just fine. With a calm smirk, Mukyang adds that he is putting it all to good use, telling him not to cling to it like a tragedy. Hande snaps back that scheming in the shadows isn't human and tells him not to drag his parents' names through the mud, before abruptly asking if they are still alive. Furious, Hande yells that nobody is stealing the guild he built with dirty tricks, shouting out that both his parents are alive for the record. Mukyang instantly fires back that it is all the more reason not to live like that, dropping a brutal blow right on him. Standing over his defeated foes, Jingguan asks if anyone else has complaints, leaving Hande to curse him under his breath. Down in the training hall, a broom sweeps away the debris scattered across the floor. Hande sweeps the floor in absolute fury, muttering that the Great Iron Fist shouldn't be reduced to a janitor and swearing revenge. Before he can plot further, Jingguan calls out his name sharply, making him jump in surprise. Jingguan tells him to sweep more gently because the noise is grating on his already stressed mind, prompting an immediate obedient reply. Hande panics inside, wondering if that monster can read minds now, and sighs over how a proud B rank ended up like this. The narrative notes how the new Marim ranks strength starting from B rank elites with special treatment, leaving Hande to lament that he expected to live like a king instead of falling this low. Jingguan snaps at him to clean every corner properly since it's no longer his guild, while Hande silently thinks that the guy acting like a janitor is actually the dirtiest one of all. Baekmundu compliments the quick takeover of the back alley guild, and Jinmu confirms if his orders to spread the word across town were carried out. Posters confirm that the mysterious nameless guest is now operating out of the Maha Guild. Because his popularity is surging, the news spreads through the streets in no time at all. A masked figure watches the crowds, confident that the rumors have finally reached the right ears. Doubting whether anyone will actually show up over mere rumors, Jinmu insists they could arrive as early as today. Night falls over the traditional rooftops as the streets remain completely quiet. Looking out at the empty streets, Baekmundu grows impatient, but Jinmu tells him that surviving in this world takes patience. Mukyang tells the elder to just wait since something probably delayed them, adding that they sound pretty nervous. A close-up shot focuses on Mukyang's intense face in the dim lighting. Mukyang throws his arms out in frustration, complaining that they should have hurried if they were coming and asking if everyone is ready. Mukyang reacts in surprise with a wide-eyed gasp. A mysterious voice interrupts, playfully questioning his use of the word they. Mukyang stares in shock as the unexpected visitors reveal themselves. Waryong teases him by asking if he really thought a bunch of thugs could look this pretty, finishing with an affectionate nickname. 3 beautiful women step forward to deliver an invitation, confirming if he is indeed the nameless guest, to which Mukyang awkwardly agrees. Hwaryong announces that they have prepared a special banquet in honor of Yeonmu's hero. The visitors deliver an invitation for nameless guest and his guild members to attend Mukyang house, leaving him caught off guard. Spears stand upright inside a dimly lit room. As she watches him, Hwaryong blurts out that they completely swept those souls away. Baekmundu figures the bait hit hard enough, pondering this unexpected invitation from Mukyang house. Alice admits she is the only clueless one here, as the others note that the famous Midnight Sun is renowned throughout Guizhou and the southern New Murim. She warns that such a bright place hides nasty rumors and urges caution, but he just grins at the danger. He smirks, wondering if it is a place meant to test a man's self-control. Told his face gives everything away, he decides they will just see for themselves as they arrive at Mukyang house. Walking down the crimson hallway, Sion Wutan wonders why he was called here. Reaching the top floor of the Mukyang house, Nanyang greets Sion Wutan with a sharp question. Sion Wutan steps forward, known as Mafia Rank 2. Nanyang, serving as Mafia Rank 3, smirks as she asks if he came just to see her. Sion Wutan snaps back that he would be crazy to visit a venomous snake, demanding a drink instead. She listens silently with a knowing smirk. After a brief pause, Nanyang orders her guards to prepare a private room for him. Sion Wutan mutters angrily that they should have done that right from the start. Nanyang warns Sion Wutan that his smug attitude is ending, since the boss offered a mid-grade mana stone as a bounty to take out the nameless guest so she can surpass him. Nanhang tells her subordinate to mix knockout powder into the drinks for the private room, shocking her underling who knows a single pinch can drop an elephant. She coldly orders at least 10 scoops, explaining that anything less won't even make their target yawn because they are aiming to kill. She flashes a sinister, knowing smirk as she prepares her next move. Nanyang reiterates that they cannot hold back against such a monster if they want to succeed. Elsewhere, a muscular figure scoffs at the arrogant fox, refusing to let anyone easily steal their hard-earned prey. Grinning widely with razor-sharp teeth, Mukyang declares he will devour every last bit of the mana stone and the target himself. He runs his tongue across his mouth in a hungry frenzy, eager to claim all the rewards for himself. Alice tells Mukyang to chew slower after asking how many days he's gone without eating, while he blurts out that he simply can't stop his hands after living on nothing but rice balls. Sip Japsu gushes with gratitude for letting him step onto the top floor of Mukyang house, prompting Mukyang to ask when his tone of address changed. Mukyang points out that this floor is reserved exclusively for VIPs, and Sip Japsu replies that getting royal treatment thanks to him is definitely something to be grateful for. Alice urges everyone to focus on eating instead of thanking people because the meat melts in your mouth, though she quickly warns Mukyang to slow down before he chokes, secretly surprised by how much they are enjoying the meal. Hwaryong suddenly rushes in with a flushed, excited expression to greet him, identified as a courtesan of Mukyang house. She leans in close with a seductive smile, murmuring that she has been waiting just for her nameless guest. Alice stares in total disbelief, eyes wide and completely caught off guard. An announcement echoes through the hall, stating the entire top floor is reserved to serve guests with utmost care. Patrons mingle and dance under warm lights, enjoying the exclusive atmosphere of the floor. Someone reaches out hesitatingly, gently calling out in a quiet voice. Hwaryong smiles sweetly, noting she prepared a special table just for him and asking if he is curious. Alice watches the blatant display with pure outrage, fuming that such a shameless woman is throwing herself at Jin Guan. Mukyang grins with flushed cheeks, eager to see what special thing awaits him, while Alice watches closely, thinking he's completely transparent. Alice panics and reaches out, shouting a desperate warning that going in there is a huge mistake. Suddenly clutching her head in pain, she winces as a wave of dizziness crashes over her. Nanyang welcomes them into a secluded red-lit room, politely offering a seat in the quiet space. Hwaryong leans in close, whispering that no one would ever notice whatever happens behind these closed doors. Thinking he is just another man underneath the hero persona, Hwaryong is revealed as a courtesan tied to the mafia. Alice points out his dazed expression and tells him not to rush, making him nervously stammer out a flustered response, while she figures this will be a breeze. Before getting to business, Hwaryong pours a cup of Mukyang House's finest red flower wine, leaving Mukyang intrigued. Nanhong thinks to herself that the drink is packed with knockout powder strong enough to drop an A-rank martial artist, leaving only cleanup. Instead of passing out, Mukyang casually praises the drink as really good, causing Hwaryong to stare at him in absolute shock. Mukyang slams his cup down and declares it worthy of the house's reputation, demanding another pour right away. Completely pale and terrified, Hua stands frozen with the wine pitcher in her hands. Sweating profusely, she forces a terrified smile and pours another cup. As she pours another cup, Hua cheerfully admits she brought plenty of other drugs just to see if he can withstand them too. Taking a sip, Mukyang notices the wine has a completely different flavor this time, addressing Hua directly. With a confident smirk, he points out how much trouble she goes through just to keep spiking every single drink. Wide-eyed with shock, Hua panics as she realizes he actually figured out her entire plan. Without missing a beat, he grabs her by the neck and Mukyang grabs Hua by the neck, demanding to know who gave the order and what kind of drug she used. He casually decides to feed the substance right back to her, making her gag in panic. She panics with wide, terrified eyes, desperately shouting that it cannot be that specific drug. As she collapses backward, she tries to protest. Mukyang suddenly stops, realizing he still needs to interrogate her about the drug's properties, and slams her down onto the floor. The banner overhead hangs quietly in the dimly lit room. Down on the floor, Hua hand twitches as she slowly regains consciousness. She sits up, clutching her head and wondering what just happened to her. Coming to abruptly, she blinks up at Mukyang, who asks if she's finally conscious. He tells her to stay seated and warns that her poison won't work on him anymore, advising her against any foolish moves. A brief flashback shows the exact moment he caught her red-handed and forced the antidote down her throat. Realizing he already figured out her entire scheme, she panics inwardly. Refusing to accept defeat so easily, she boasts that she already poisoned his companions outside. Before she can use them as leverage, Baekmundu announces that the detoxification is already complete, leaving his allies wondering why their stomachs hurt from just drinking too much. Shocked by how quickly they recovered, she asks how he managed it. Baekmundu flashes a confident grin, explaining that trying to use poison right in front of a rare hunter and master apothecary like him was a massive mistake. Mukyang reports that all the Jisung are tied up and dealt with, while a tiny avatar praises his good work. Now that their drinks are settled, he demands that she answer his pressing question. Pointing down at the table, Mukyang demands to know where their mafia boss is hiding. Gritting her teeth in sheer panic, she refuses to give up the boss's location. She snaps back that she will never tell him anything. Mukyang asks if she truly values loyalty over her life, making her panic about his terrifying look. As he reaches out, Mukyang says gender doesn't matter for loyalty, prompting her to frantically take it back. Pinned down and panicking, the grunt insists they are just a low-ranking member who doesn't know where the mafia boss is hiding, only that a key is required. Surprised by this sudden revelation, she blurts out a quick follow-up question. With wide, anxious eyes, she explains she heard the Pavilion Lord holds a key leading straight to the mafia boss. The catch is that unlocking it requires 2 keys at once, with one kept by the Pavilion Lord and the other in the VIP room. When asked if they need both, she confirms it, adding that a protective skill on the items means taking one triggers a reaction. Realizing a signal goes straight to the other key, he asks if they must grab both simultaneously, which she confirms with a sly inner grin as her trap clicks into place. Hua points out that the entire setup is just a ruse to send the nameless guest straight into a trap with the Pavilion Lord, warning that only a powerhouse could survive fighting one of the strongest figures in the area. With a confident grin, Jinmu tells everyone to split up to find the key, announcing that he will handle the ink fragrance Pavilion Lord himself while the others search elsewhere. Jinmu tells Baek to stay behind and help clean up the area alongside Han Dae, and the older man simply replies that he understands. Choyoung anxiously questions if he is really going to trust this woman and warns it could be a trap, but Jinmu brushes it off by saying any trap that fails to kill him just makes him stronger. As Jinmu tells them not to worry about him and to watch their own backs instead, the others figure that since he is basically a monster, nothing bad can possibly happen to him despite their annoyance at his overbearing pride. Hua watches him leave, thinking he has no clue how vast the world is since the target is a terrifying A-rank hunter and one of the very few in Guizhou. She adds with absolute certainty that no matter how strong he thinks he is, he will end up crawling at her feet the moment they clash. Someone asks if anyone really thinks things will be different just because they are heading to the VIP room of the Ink Fragrance Pavilion. Down in the pavilion, a scarred fighter holds a cup while flames crackle around him. An ominous voice warns that a beast of a man is waiting and death awaits anyone who goes there. Baek says he isn't worried about their lord, but notes that handling a mafia den's VIP room won't be easy. Jinmu brushes off the concern with a grin, claiming he just thought of a great idea while someone nearby gets a bad feeling about his expression. Inside the VIP room, a mafia guard turns around in confusion and demands to know who called for Gisang. A voice answers from the shadows that nobody had to call them. Choryong steps forward with a smile, introducing herself as she infiltrates the VIP room to serve them of her own accord. Myong Chung welcomes them with a smirk, admiring her looks while asking if just the two of them came. Yang So-hai stammers nervously, introducing her companion as her very shy older sister. Baek stands there fuming under his disguise as Nakwa, cursing whoever came up with this crazy idea. The men at the table gawk at the newcomer, laughing as they agree to treat such a stunner gently. Myung Chung heaps praise on her looks while Baek plays along, silently hating every second of posing as a Gisung. Baek grits his teeth in pure frustration, admitting that despite wanting to scream at his lord, the disguise actually works. The group acts loud and drunk, but watching closely reveals something else. Their movements remain completely steady, giving away that it is all an act. They keep wide smiles on their faces, yet there is a dangerous tension underneath. Not a single one of them is showing any opening to exploit. Every single person at the table sits at B rank, making a solo fight way too dangerous. More importantly, the real priority is finding where the key is hidden. She zeroes in on the crucial objective, the key to the VIP room. Since the red-haired man keeps the key on him and nobody here has red hair, she decides poisoning everyone is the easiest way out. Nanhyang activates her apothecary skill, Poison Enchant, to imbue the jar with lethal toxin. She makes her move to strike, but sudden shock hits her as she realizes something is completely wrong. A towering figure stands tall behind a sweating and anxious woman. The subordinates shout in shock, asking the A-rank hunter why he isn't resting and wondering if the red-haired man holds the key. The tense woman stares ahead with a worried expression. She quickly brushes that thought aside, realizing that is not what matters right now. Sensing a heavy aura, the A-rank hunter figures out the guy is an A-rank before telling his partners to handle the VIP room while he goes after the key. Crying tears of panic, the terrified woman retorts that it is actually incredibly hard and they are about to get themselves killed. A servant tells Mukyang that Nanyang tampered with the drinks earlier and asks if they should bring a fresh table. Mukyang dismisses the servant, realizing Nanyang's cheap trick means she's planning something tonight, and angrily demands more alcohol. Choryong silently thanks the medicine she used to mask their presence, knowing a mana scan would have killed them instantly. As long as the medicine holds, they won't get caught. So Choryong plans to check for the key while wondering what Nanyang is scheming. Mukyang flashes a sharp, confident smirk with his fangs bared. Choryong offers him a cup of wine, and Mukyang asks if she knows what's going on. Suddenly, a hand strikes out in a swift motion, leaving everyone completely shocked. Nanyang stammers in a panic, asking if she did something wrong as a voice tells her to speak up. Mukyang grabs her by the wrist, demanding to know what kind of scheme she planned by disguising herself. As the explanation points out, climbing ranks means exponential stat growth, making higher ranks drastically stronger. Someone cries out in pain, begging the great hero to stop crushing their hand. With A-rank power rivaling a superhuman, he demands to know what kind of scheme Nanyang is pulling. His enhanced superhuman senses easily pick up the hidden traces of anesthetic powder hanging in the air. Panic. She claims she only came to pour drinks, wondering in horror if he possesses the beast attribute. Beyond standard ranks, hunters have a slim chance of unlocking rare elemental and beast attributes upon reaching certain levels. Baek Mundu's poison attribute infuses skills with status effect toxins, and Xian Wutan grabs him by the hair, demanding to know why he reeks of anesthetic powder despite lying. As Xian Wutan's beast attribute grants him superhuman senses, Nanhang sweats nervously and claims the scent is just spilled alcohol, panicking over how to escape. Nanhang tries to claim nobody would believe a mere courtesan could poison someone as great as him, before hesitating under his piercing glare. Down at the table, someone swallows hard while watching the intense confrontation unfold. Panicking in a cold sweat, Baek Mundu stutters in a panic that she suddenly went ahead and chugged the whole thing. High on the powerful toxins, the poisoned woman stumbles around the room, shouting that everything is spinning. Meanwhile, Nanyang nervously tells Xian Wuftan that it is a relief she only managed to spill it on him instead. An unseen voice suddenly bellows an enraged command to get this trash out of sight right now. Footsteps echo down the hallway as someone approaches. Waryong worries about facing their lord empty-handed, but then figures they should just be glad they survived an A-rank encounter. Alice tells her companion not to worry because she managed to save something else, leaving the other woman totally confused. When asked if she was actually drunk, Alice admits it was all an act, explaining that rule number 1 for a thief is erasing every bit of suspicion. Alice proudly pulls out a small pouch she stole right from that scary guy's pocket, stunning her ally with her boldness. She explains she just grabbed it from his chest pocket and assumes the key must be inside, while Yang So-hai stares in silence. Nanhang reacts with pure shock upon hearing that Alice just pickpocketed an A-rank hunter. Baek complains about having to work with a rookie D rank. When Nan Yang asks if he dislikes it, Alice stammers out a nervous denial. Baek says he will follow orders, but honestly prefers to go alone because D ranks are useless. As Baek keeps complaining about the useless rank, Jin Moo calls him out for being obsessed with ranks. Jin Moo turns the tables by smiling and asking what rank he thinks he actually is. Jin Moo maintains a calm and confident composure. Baek rubs his chin, figuring a lord of that caliber has to be at least A rank. At least A rank, Jin Moo repeats with a knowing smirk. He asks Baek if he would believe him if Alice stole a book from his pocket and he didn't even notice. Jin Moo looks at Alice with a sidelight glance. Baek reasons that if she could pull that off, she clearly couldn't just be a simple D rank. Baek flashes a wide calculating grin. Baek concludes she must be at least B rank just as Alice opens the pouch and panics because there is no key inside. Up above, someone stares in total shock, wondering how she actually pulled off the theft. Meanwhile, she questions if her rival risked her own life by throwing up that alcohol just to save her, though she quickly gets defensive when asked if she is unhappy about being saved. With a bead of sweat running down her face, she admits it is not about that at all. She reminds her companion that they are technically sworn enemies. She embraces her friend gently in a quiet, emotional moment, admitting that even though they are enemies she wants to smack on sight, she just cannot leave someone to die right in front of her. She reflects that if it were Jin Guan in her place, he definitely would have saved her. Flabbergasted that she saved her for such a ridiculous reason, she listens as her partner proudly asks if she thinks it is cool. She reluctantly agrees, muttering that such cheap sentimentality is a fast ticket to getting killed. Alice fumes over being shown zero gratitude after saving someone only to be dismissed as a vulgar D rank. She offers to brew a growth potion once they return, keeping the conversation going. Surprised by the offer, her expression instantly shifts into sheer shock as an explosion erupts behind her. The narrator points out 2 overlooked facts, starting with the reality that every mafia member in the pavilion answers to Nan Hyang. Sion Wutan reveals his intent to kill everyone from the start, while the second fatal oversight proves to be the beast attribute. Someone reacts in sheer disbelief, asking if anyone dares target their belongings. Because beast attributes make people fiercely possessive, Sion Wutan grins and commends the sheer audacity. He admits that managing to deceive his senses for even a moment shows genuine talent. The bored beast, starved of action during peacetime, starts getting ready for a fight. Sion Wutan flashes a wide, wicked grin with his tongue out. Thrilled by his first hunt in ages, he prepares to let loose a joyful roar. He unleashes Predator's roar, freezing his target in place and leaving her terrified. She lies paralyzed and gasping, terrified as her body refuses to respond. With wide, tearful eyes, she gasps heavily for air in complete shock. Desperately, she shouts for the D-rank hunter to run away immediately. A red-haired warrior delivers a powerful strike to an opponent while a silver-haired woman cowers in fear. She cries out in anguish, calling out to Mundo as she crashes backward. He grins wildly, telling her not to worry because he wants to enjoy his first hunt in a long time. Struggling to catch her breath, she watches in sheer terror. He flexes his clawed gauntlet, announcing that the hunt has officially begun. Mukyang glares at his opponent with a feral grin, comparing him to a gate beast and telling him to show his claws. As floating purple energy balls surround him, Mukyang reacts in surprise to the sudden display. A massive wave of toxic vapor erupts around him as the apothecary skill poison torrent activates. Inhaling the purple mist, Mukyang chuckles and points out that they are trying to use his keen sense of smell against him. He smirks as he breathes in the poison, noting that he loves it when his prey struggles harder. His eyes narrow in the dark as he glances back. Noticing the trembling prey is suddenly gone, he realizes he sent her away to deal with one noisy beast first. She smirks, declaring that she alone is enough, and tells her to run away. She notes that the needle she used will cure the paralysis from his roar skill. She points out that escaping together is impossible, so she resolves to buy as much time as she can. Telling her to report to their lord, she calls her a smooth, talking druggie and declares they are even over the growth potion. She yells at her to just survive, vowing to bring Jingguan back no matter what. Thick dust and debris swirl through the air as the area is consumed by the chaotic aftermath. Mukyang charges fiercely at his opponent while brandishing his blade. He swings a sharp, glowing strike down toward a white-robed opponent standing in defense. Drawing upon specialized tools, a heavy needle is revealed as an apothecary's weapon. During the intense clash, Mukyang teases his adversary with bizarre compliments. Furious at the insult, the fighter fires back before consuming a forbidden pill to boost their physical abilities. Struggling under the heavy toll, the warrior realizes this is already their second pill. He explains that he used the first pill to block the opening strike, and now he is releasing the second. Because the forbidden pill relies on poison, it packs way more punch than regular buffs, leaving his opponent taunting him for actually keeping up. She realizes the dangerous catch is that the poison builds up inside her body, but her opponent just grins, saying she is way more fun than the weaklings. Struggling against the toxic buildup with blood on her face, she stops dead in her tracks as she realizes she cannot push her limits any further. Her wide eye reflects absolute shock as the full horror of her deteriorating condition starts to sink in. Grinning wildly with dark energy swirling around him, her opponent decides it is time to ramp things up and play a lot rougher. Great Hero stomps down with devastating force, shattering the stone floor completely. Alice and her companions desperately scramble out of the way as the ground caves in. Alice lands heavily, gasping in shock at the immense power behind a simple stomp. She groans in pain, nursing her injuries amidst the falling debris. Alice stares up in utter disbelief, wondering if this is the true strength of an A rank. Great Hero surges forward, smashing through the remaining structures with brutal speed. Great Hero taunts her, asking if she jumped backward on purpose to cushion the blow. He steps closer through the dust, remarking that she has nowhere left to run. As he casually offers to end things painlessly, Mukyang stops for a second and reconsiders. Then with a smirk, he figures that sort of unexpected twist just happens sometimes. Mukyang flashes a wide, menacing grin with glowing eyes. Standing battered amidst the purple flames, Alice admits it feels strange fighting this hard since it is not her usual style. She pops another pill, acknowledging his strength, but noting she has faced far worse monsters before, giving her a shot if she risks her life, though Mukyang scoffs that a mere B rank has lost her mind. Coughing up blood with a twisted smile, she repeats that even she finds her stubborn stand bizarre. Thinking back, she realizes abandoning the D rank would have guaranteed her own safety. Running away just did not suit Baekmundu at all. But if it were Jin Guan making the call, things would be different. She wonders if hanging around all these crazy bastards is making her lose her mind too, thinking he would have saved her. With a wild grin, she embraces this cheap sentimentality as the perfect way to get. She dares him to bring it on, declaring it's the perfect cheap sentiment to die for. He asks her if suicide is really the best move her brilliant mind could come up with. He reacts with shock as something suddenly catches him off guard. Reacting to the sudden movement, he realizes just how fast she is. She asks if it stings, while he wonders if his skyrocketing energy comes from the acupuncture needle in his heart. She activates an apothecary skill to turn the tables. With a single command to unify, she brings her power together. She fires off a crimson blood needle technique. A powerful impact shatters the surroundings. Red energy arcs swirl between two fighting figures amidst sharp impact flashes. The sharp blood attack strikes right through his defenses. He grins wildly, calling his opponent a cheeky bastard for hiding fangs. She taunts him with a confident smirk, asking if he is losing his nerve. Beast Warrior grins wildly under his mask, shouting that this fight is only making him more excited. The two clash in a brutal flurry of attacks, exchanging fierce blows with their weapons. Alice grits her teeth in pain, realizing that the longer the fight drags on, the worse her chances become. She resolves to end the battle as quickly as possible, before things get entirely out of hand. Xian Wu-tan sneers in disappointment, dismissing the frantic attempt with a cold scoff. The narrator notes that it was an attack born entirely out of desperate cornered panic. Beast Warrior shouts that a simple bee sting could never stop a beast's claws. Caught off guard, he looks around in utter confusion as floating red needles spin all around him. Mukyang points out that while he has been acting like a beast, things are about to change. He coolly asks if having a beast's body also means having the brain of one. Noting the explosive physical boost and altered skills, Mukyang figures that Needle carried some potent medicine. A boost of that caliber surely comes with a hefty price, and Beast Warrior admits that is spot on. Every battle demands a price, and Baekmundu triggers an apothecary secret technique that drives a needle straight into the heart to boost his physical limits. Knowing that the longer it runs, the closer it brings him to death. Baekmundu never imagined he would actually have to use this fatal skill in his entire life, leaving him coughing up blood in agony. Jin Mu looks down at him, asking why he doesn't just do that same transformation he tried earlier if he wants to get stronger. Mukyang looks straight ahead with a cool expression. He replies that it is a technique requiring magic stones and strictly meant for enemies he cannot handle at all. Baekmundu explains that he can only use that transformation when consuming magic stones against foes way out of his league. He adds that he has already used up all his magic stones, leaving him out of options. There is one last resort remaining, but he hesitates to use it. Baekmundu hesitates because that final resort requires putting his own life completely on the line. He suddenly cries out in pain as he strikes himself in a desperate move. Mukyang points out that she's asking useless questions since she already knows the solution. Baekmundu stands with a dumpling resting on top of his head. Baekmundu argues that the solution requires risking his life. Mukyang smiles and replies that warriors living by the sword must risk everything to become strong. Baekmundu quietly regrets ever asking his lord anything. Thinking he was an idiot back then, Baekmundu realizes he has no choice now that the moment has arrived. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him. Baekmundu tells the bastard he had better put his life on the line too at this rate. Eyes go wide in shock at the sudden turn. Fueled by Mundo's very life force, pushing past his own limits, he unleashes his apothecary skill, the life-ending needle. She pushes forward, with everything she's got, desperately trying to reach him. But he just flashes a wide, terrifying grin. The wall of an A rank isn't something that gets breached so easily. Caught off guard, she reacts in sudden shock. He declares that no predator risks its life for mere prey, activating his beast warrior skill, Wolf Hunt. She stands battered and bleeding, clutching her wounded arm. Beast warrior shouts that they will simply ravage them while lunging forward. With a ferocious expression, he laughs wildly as he unleashes a flurry of high-speed claw strikes against his opponent. Baekmundu grits her teeth in pain, shocked that the massive power gap remains even at her absolute limit. He glares down at her with a terrifying grin, warning that before her heart rots away completely, he will rip it out and devour it alive. She glares back at that monstrous bastard, desperately trying to keep her cool amid the intense pressure. Recovering her focus, she reminds herself not to let herself get swept up in his overwhelming pace. As time runs out, she gasps out in desperation while blood streams down her face. The severe penalty of his poison needle begins taking a heavy toll on his body. He glares through the smoke, demanding to know why another smokescreen just popped up. Paralyzed by the poison torrent, she struggles to move and desperately tries to create some distance. A grim figure cloaked in shadows darts swiftly across the battlefield. He smirks, warning that relying on the same shallow trick means it is finally time to end things. Caught off guard and pinned down, she gasps out how it is possible, while he coldly explains that his senses are 5 times sharper than an ordinary hunter's. Grinning with blood on his teeth, he boasts that he knew her location from the start and just played along, because true predators love giving hope and despair together. He declares in the dark that playing with people like that is much more amusing. Struggling against his grip with sweat rolling down her face, she wheezes out that he really is a perverted bastard. As her vision fades, she wonders if this is the end, admitting that even without him, time was never on her side anyway. Lying wounded as her heart throbs painfully, she regrets not living a bit more virtuously if she knew she would die like this. She reflects on spending her whole life scamming people, only for her one out-of-character good deed to end in disaster. Groaning that her scams did not even pay well, she closes her eyes with a faint thought that meeting her lord was actually quite nice. As he looks back, a younger martial artist stands nearby while things unfold. He recalls sharing some genuinely good times with that man, and in their own unique way, they dealt with those punks too. Grimacing in pain, he shouts out as someone asks if he has gone mad with fear. Mukyang stands in silence with a mischievous expression. He lets out an incoherent stream of frantic noise. Mukyang pauses for a second before continuing. He figures it doesn't even matter anyway. Mukyang flashes a fierce and terrifying grin right in front of him. Battered and bleeding from the face, he admits he thought he was completely done for. As he faces the end, he wonders why those bastards have to flash through his mind right now, feeling like it's completely unfair. He blames someone for everything, finding it deeply annoying before shifting his thoughts to his lord. Jinguan asks what he's supposed to do when his life is in actual danger. The man tells him to just shout and he will come. Standing in the room, they exchange words while glancing sideways. Doubtful, he mutters that as if he would actually show up. Back in the present crisis, he screams in absolute terror at death's door, cursing Jinguan out loud and demanding to be saved. Suddenly, a shocked question breaks the silence as something unexpected happens. Someone stares in utter shock, and then he fires back, asking if someone just called him a son of a bitch. Xian Wutan stares with wide eyes. He glares down at the injured woman, demanding to know when he ever gave her permission to swear at him, while she stammers out a weak "my lord." She looks up in disbelief, asking him if he really came for her. Xian Wutan bares his teeth in a fierce expression. He leaps through the air with explosive speed. The woman clicks her tongue in annoyance as she hits the ground. Mukyang complains that he fought a bloody battle just to save her, warning that they are going to talk later, prompting her to ask about his messy appearance. Mukyang glances over, asking if that is the guy who messed with them, wondering if he really just came back from a fierce battle. Down on the floor, he tells her to pull herself together and get some rest. He warns that he is about to show what. The story flashes back 1 hour to a quiet room inside the pavilion. Heavy doors stand firmly shut at the end of the ornate corridor. The thick metal doors bear deep impact marks across their surface. Mukyang pushes the heavy door open, casually noting that it is unlocked. He complains about how stiff and unyielding the doors are around here. Nanhang sits waiting inside, greeting him with a smile and asking if he enjoyed her hospitality. Mukyang quips about the deadly potency of the drinks before offering her some medicine in return. She smiles and remarks that she has prepared a gift too, assuming her target is just a rookie civilian with no mana. As she questions how he broke through Mithril with sheer force, Mukyang coolly warns her to sing her favorite song while she still can. Realizing he is a martial artist, Nanyang decides to perform a deadly song for him right then and there. She gracefully steps forward, announcing that the name of her piece is a funeral dirge as a sudden strike lands right behind Mukyang. The mafia executive Nanyang gloats over her ambush, calling him a greenhorn for failing to dodge her blade. As someone warns her to stay quiet since her vital spots were avoided, she just blinks in sudden confusion. Mukyang casually hands over a pouch of pomegranate juice for a hangover, telling him he's as picky with food as he looks. Nanhang echoes the word pomegranate in disbelief as she looks at her bloodied blade. Realizing he actually used his head, she flashes a dangerous grin and decides it's time to get serious. She breaks into motion, unleashing her thief skill dancer's steps as she dashes forward. Moving at high speed, she taunts him that a mere martial artist won't even be able to follow her movements. Mukyang completely tracks her high-speed assault, casually asking if that frantic movement is supposed to be a popular dance. He blinks in confusion, wondering why their footsteps are suddenly matching up. She takes a brutal hit to the face, letting out a sharp gasp of pain. He crashes hard into the ground, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. He brushes it off with a casual smile, complaining that keeping up with modern trends is way too tough. She struggles to catch her breath on the ground, realizing just how close she was to passing out. He suddenly remembers what matters most and asks her where she hid the key. She jumps back up in fury, demanding to know how he could hit a lady's face, but he just casually asks if she's finally awake. Nanyang snaps her whip and declares she will face him properly this time. She grips the weapon with a fierce expression. Mukyang points out that she said the exact same thing earlier. He looks on with a blank expression as the attack rushes past. Nanhang swings her whip through the air. Mukyang tells her that for someone talking so big, her moves are nothing special, asking how long she plans to fool around. She asks if he really thinks direct hits are the only way to attack, catching him completely off guard. Mukyang gasps in shock as he suddenly feels a strange sensation in his chest. Nanyang taunts her target about the racing heartbeat caused by her enchantment, explaining that anyone touched by her mana becomes a blind servant. The ability scales by rank, meaning an A-rank enchantment only needs skin contact to unleash a force far stronger than any aphrodisiac. She swings her weapon while demanding that everyone drown in her charm and perish. Jinguan panics as the whip strikes him, realizing this insidious energy is completely different from poison and is seeping through his body. Laughing manically, Nanyang tells the wanderer to run like a dog, while a voice desperately urges Jinguan to fight off the dark arts. Trapped in an illusion, Jinguan hears her sweet call and wonders if simply giving in would not be so bad after all. Flushed and grinning like a fool, Mukyang mumbles about a pretty lady. Nanyang gloats that he's just like any other man and won't last much longer. Struggling to snap out of it, Mukyang listens as Nanyang shares some news. She admits she ordered Waryang to lie and lure him right into her trap. She vows to spare his life while his companions become ghosts of the underworld. Nanhang warns that his friends face a monster even she would struggle to fight. Laughing off his expression, she lets him say his goodbyes over his friends' corpses. Nan Yang wields her whip and tells her target that surviving 100 lashes earns the honor of crawling between her legs. As the blows rain down, she tells him that is only if he can actually endure it. An X-shaped energy slash bursts across his torso amidst intense motion lines. Declaring that this is the end, Nan Yang pauses to catch her breath, panting heavily from the exertion. Staring down at him, she officially declares that he is her slave from now on, calling him a nameless wanderer. Suddenly, her red eyes narrow in fierce disbelief. Confused as to why the whip has stopped yet she still hears its sound, she stops in her tracks. She stares back with total shock written across her face. The target mutters that old elder sayings never fail, leaving Nanhong staring in utter shock and asking how this is possible. With his face completely puffed up, he notes that pretty roses always have thorns while asking why his face looks like that. Nan Yang completely loses her mind, shouting in sheer disbelief that he actually slapped his own face just to break her enchantment. A hand suddenly shoots out and grabs her by the wrist, choking off a sharp gasp as she gets caught. Staring right into his face, Nan Yang panics and asks if he is going for her cheeks again, but he just declares that it is his personal motto. He proudly preaches that grace and revenge are both doubled, leaving her to stammer out why his pronunciation is only clear on the revenge part. Looking up at the sudden shift in the room, someone asks aloud if a blood battle is really going down. Mukyang stands there with a puffy cheek, casually admitting it was a heroic battle. He tells everyone to rest up for now, adding that he knows the exact cure for a biting dog. Sion Wu-tan watches him approach in utter silence, wondering what on earth is wrong with that guy. He realizes this must be the nameless wanderer, and wonders how Nanhyang managed to blow her first strike. Seeing someone get beaten up that badly by Nanhong just completely ruins his mood. Sion Wu-tan announces he has no interest in leftovers, telling him to surrender quietly so he spares his life. Mukyang fires right back, mocking his wild claims, and telling him to close his mouth because of the stench. Someone points out that it might be because that man possesses the beast attribute. Nanhyang explains that hunter attributes reflect their desires, comparing his loud barking to a chihuahua, which prompts Jinmu to ask if his name is Chihuahua. Meanwhile, an enraged Sion Wu-tan loses his temper and threatens to chew up their jaws. Alice timidly tells Sion Wu-tan that his words were a bit harsh, while Mukyang silently listens. Sion Wu-tan casts aside orders and activates his special skill Primeval Wildness to awaken an ancient beast and vow total slaughter. Alice cries out in panic for her lord, watching in horror as she feels the unbelievable ferocity closing in. Yang So-hai worries that no matter how strong her lord is, he won't withstand an attack like this. Mukyang looks down with a confident smirk, noting that a dog showing its teeth needs discipline. He states that a rod is the best medicine for any beast-like nature. As Sion Wu-tan lashes out, Mukyang declares that anyone wearing a human disguise must learn to feel shame for their lack of virtue. He lists forgetfulness and shame as the core lessons. Mukyang drives his fist straight down onto the beast warrior with immense force. He finishes the strike with the forget-shame fist, slamming Sion Wu-tan into the ground. Night falls over the traditional multi-tiered building, casting a quiet shadow across the rooftops. A powerful impact shatters the ground below with explosive force. The towering ink fragrance pavilion stands under the moonlight before disaster strikes. A massive destructive force shatters the structure from above, sending debris flying everywhere. Amidst the blazing ruins, the woman watches in shock as she notes the ink fragrance pavilion has collapsed. She quickly reminds herself that it is a good thing she evacuated everyone in advance. Suddenly panicked, she calls out for Jingguan in absolute terror. She rushes desperately through the burning corridors, demanding to know where he is. Alice stares wide-eyed as she realizes what is happening. Someone sprints forward, shouting that they finally found him. Alice calls out urgently that they are in big trouble because Mundo is in danger. He responds with a casual note that he already knows, leaving her totally stunned. Alice demands to know if he even heard a single word she just said. Before she can get an answer, she finds a mysterious note and wonders when it got there. The note rests in her hand as tension fills the quiet room. Reading the message, she learns she needs to evacuate everyone outside because danger is coming, and she wonders what he is planning. Heavy rain falls over the ruined debris after the fierce battle. Wooden planks and rubble scatter across the wet ground in the storm. Wooden planks and rubble scatter across the wet ground in the storm. He checks his face, muttering that the swelling finally went down after flexing his muscles a little. He lies flat out on the debris-strewn ground, completely knocked out from the impact. Mukyang taps him on the head, telling the rascal to get up instead of sleeping after just one hit. The startled fighter jolts awake in a panic, wondering in disbelief if the man is still alive. Mukyang tells Seon Wootan he is weaker than he looks, leaving Alice staring in utter shock at what just happened. Alice stares in disbelief, realizing an A-rank hunter got knocked out in a single punch and wondering how anyone could be this strong. Realizing he just cursed right at Baekmundu, he suddenly panics. She stammers out an apology, explaining it was pure panic while quietly convincing herself she is completely dead meat. With a wide, confident grin, he tells her she did a good job. He praises Baekmundu for holding out so well to keep Alice safe. Looking battered and covered in dirt, she addresses him with a shaken expression. She trails off into silence, staring at him in disbelief. Alice frets over why he used to call her a druggie every day but is suddenly using her full name so embarrassingly, before awkwardly clearing her throat and calling him her lord. Alice asks what he's going to do with that bastard. He steps forward, answering that now that they've caught the hound, they need to track down the master holding the leash. Standing over the downed foe, he finishes his thought about finding that master. Beneath them, the captive groans out in pain. Amidst the pouring rain, he reflects on growing up as a hunter's child, treating the harsh mountain as both his home and school. He explains that he learned everything right there, living strictly by the ruthless law of the jungle. He notes that under that law, the weak lose what they have, while the strong simply take it. With a battered face, he confesses that he has always lived his life exactly like that. Mukyang tells the group that today they just happen to be the stronger ones, while Nahan Dae complains that his lord still hasn't come to his senses yet. Alice furiously shouts at Nahan Dae to get straight to the point and state the conclusion first instead of rambling. Young Sohai demands to know where the boss is and why the past is coming up, but Nahan Dae tells her to listen to the end because every story has context. Mukyang glares with a menacing aura and asks if Nahan Dae still has the guts to babble about ranks, making him stammer to shut up. In the heavy rain, workers clear away the ruined debris of the shattered structure. Everyone gathers in silence as Nahan Dae sits on the ground, looking battered and cornered. Nahan Dae drops a bombshell by revealing that the Mafia was originally an organization he founded. Alice asks in shock if he was really the founder. He explains that it started as a simple hide smuggling group, but everything changed one day. Seon Wootan kneels on the ground, coughing up blood in the rain. Then someone unexpected appears before them. Seon Wootan explains that this newcomer was another A-rank fighter whose overwhelming strength felt like an impenetrable wall, leading to his defeat and a forced takeover of the organization. Curious about the memory, he asks who that guy actually is. He starts to reveal his identity. Seon Wootan grits his teeth in a tense silence. A cloaked figure interrupts by telling Seon Wootan that he talks too much and has arrived in person. Jiok stands in the pouring rain, staring down at someone and remarking that it's a mistake to take in a beast. Down on the ground, a battered Seon Wootan listens as Jiok complains about him, blabbering without knowing grace. Jiok holds up the fallen ink fragrance pavilion lord by her hair as Mukyang watches in silence. Then Mukyang steps closer, noting that she's already dead and asking Jiok if he's the one who killed her. Behind his mask, Jiuk coldly replies that once something's usefulness is gone, discarding it is just the way of the world. Unfazed, Mukyang looks right at him in the rain and asks if he's the boss. Jiok turns his masked face toward him, acknowledging that they finally meet face to face. Someone remarks that he's different from the Muram martial artist intoxicated by weak power, and praises him for managing to subdue Seon Wootan. As he looks down coldly, a voice tells him he'd have been useful if he hadn't bared his fangs, leading him to question that usefulness. He stands near a downed figure under the pouring rain, while a hand draws a blade from its sheath. Then, a figure in dark armor declares that this too must be his fate. The masked swordsman with long, black hair tells him to pay for blocking the Red Blood Alliance with his death. Seeing the bloody chrysanthemum emblem, the old man panics, realizing it's the Blood Gods Guild, and warning that this means war with the association. Unfazed, the masked swordsman scoffs at the warning, asking if they think his side would ever fear a war. Jiok declares that anyone in their way can just be killed, adding that they are ready to throw away their lives like dust for that person. Alice stares in dirty clothes, realizing that what looks like smoke is actually steam caused by intense heat. Jock challenges the nameless wanderer, revealing his identity as the A-rank hunter inferno swordsman, Jock Han Wei. Mukyang listens in disgust, questioning how someone can talk about casually discarding allies and killing those who get in the way. Mukyang leaps forward through the air with a determined look, knowing for sure what he needs to do. Mukyang calls them scumbags who shouldn't exist and unleashes his hammer fist attack right at them. Up above, a voice declares that everything will unfold according to a higher will. The battlefield erupts as the blade of Inferno ignites the air with overwhelming power. Down below, everyone struggles to breathe as a tremendous wave of heat washes over them. Jiok watches the opponent, noting that reaching A rank gives them every reason to be confident. He states that this confidence has its limits because a strict hierarchy of power governs everything. Even within the same rank, Jiok explains, massive level differences exist before unleashing his judgment of Inferno. Sion Wutan declares that he will make Mukyang realize there are mountains that cannot be climbed. Stunned by a sudden massive blow, Sion Wutan cries out in shock as he gets sent flying. The sheer force of the impact tears through the ground, kicking up a massive cloud of dust and debris. Sion Wutan scrambles up from the rubble, demanding to know what all that talk about unscalable mountains meant, wondering how he lost track of his opponent for even a second. Mukyang calmly steps in, admitting that while a few things the fighter blurted out were right, the rest of it definitely earned him a beating. Enraged and scarred, Sion Wutan vows to tear his enemy apart, but Mukyang fires back that since his opponent has been looking down on martial artists this whole time, it is time to teach him a lesson. Mukyang flashes a confident smirk as he points out that just because people practice martial arts, heavy rain pours down in the dark night as a storm rages over the area. Standing under the stormy night sky, two figures face each other amidst the pouring rain. Alice watches closely, realizing that his incredible movements and flame attributes make him far deadlier than a standard A-rank hunter. Gritting his teeth in frustration, the opponent angrily calls him a mere marine insect. Unleashing the blade of Scourge Condemnation, he roars that there is no escape alive. As the blazing attack comes down, Jinguan reacts quietly with a brief word. As the fight starts, he points out that despite all the tough talk, he dismisses the enemy's skills, saying there's really nothing special about them. The clash intensifies as swords cross in a flurry of sparks and motion. Calling him an arrogant fool, he asks how long he plans to brag about beating Sion Wutan. Warning that he has gone far enough, he declares that all his petty tricks end right here. Releasing the Scourge Imugi, he promises to burn his opponent to ashes without a single bone left. Jinguan explains that skills are the exact reason why Mirim ultimately fell behind the hunters. Yet the narrator points out that Mirim people weren't weak either, featuring plenty of monstrous physical traits. Even so, hunters could recreate legendary techniques like the myriad rain of blossoms with just a single skill. Compared to lifelong soldier key cultivation, hunters easily spewed flames that burned much hotter and longer. That sheer power is a granted authority rather than a technique, making hunters impossible to defeat without overcoming those skills. As long as those skills remain unchecked, Mirim warriors can never hope to beat a hunter. Mukyang listens closely to the revelation, saying he now completely understands how everything works. A rank hunter confirms his observation, concluding that it all boils down to a simple difference in weapons. Jinguan instantly objects to that claim, sweating nervously as he rejects the idea. The scarred fighter loses his temper, shouting that his opponent is still joking around, but gets asked right back if it really sounds like a joke. Flames engulf the area as a fierce slash tears right through the defensive barrier. Staring in utter shock, he wonders how his scourge was ever pierced straight through. Realizing the sheer danger of the situation, he thinks to himself in absolute disbelief. Taunting his bleeding rival, he asks how it feels to have a mere graze send chills down his spine, leaving the opponent to wonder if fists were just a petty distraction for a hidden weapon. He shows off his glowing hand, bragging about the ultimate technique he devised, called the finger spear, and asks how it feels to nearly get a hole punched through his head. Jiok Hanwei snarls in pure rage, shouting that his opponent is a complete son of a bitch as flames roar around him. He reaches for his weapon, readying his blade amidst the raging inferno. Glaring through the fire, he snaps that if things are going to be like this, the fool is only rushing toward his own death. Drawing the Scourge Greatsword, he swears he will burn that blabbering tongue straight out of his enemy's head first. Watching from nearby, Alice cries out in shock, wondering if this terrifying display is the true power of an A-rank. Jinguan replies that a proper A-rank's strength is practically a natural disaster before asking what they should do about the woman. Jinguan notes that the injured woman is the master of Ink Fragrance Pavilion. He adds that he performed emergency first aid, so she might just survive. Saving her means they can get answers from her later, instead of letting her burn to ash, though they admit it is a fair point. Jinguan notes that this plan only works if Jinguan wins his current fight, because a loss means death for all of them. Death is all that awaits them if things go wrong in the ongoing battle. The combatants clash fiercely amidst roaring flames and flying debris. Stunned by the overwhelming strength in front of him, the fighter wonders what on earth this guy really is. He can barely believe his eyes as his opponent casually parries his sword strikes using only bare fingers. Caught off guard by a blinding strike, he reacts in sheer shock. Struggling under the immense force, he admits that every block makes his hand go numb. Sensing a lighter blow, he realizes that his opponent's energy is finally running out. Grinning sharply, he declares that this is the absolute limit for all Merim people. The elder explains that the second major difference between hunters and Merim lies in internal energy and mana. He points out that while internal energy demands years of grueling cultivation, awakened mana lets users draw power straight from nature without end. The attacker gloats that a Merim warrior without internal energy is just an ordinary human, demanding to know if he finally gets the gap between them. He screams with a twisted grin for his opponent to despair before infinite power and get crushed like trash. Unfazed, Jinmu points his finger and asks if he is bored after putting on a one-man show this whole time. As Jinmu suggests trying a slight variation of the exam, the enemy stares back in sudden shock. He explains that one fist represents the hammer. A clenched fist rises in a dramatic display of raw power. He adds that the other glowing finger serves as the chisel. A fiery glowing finger extends upward, surrounded by bright flames and sparks. Jinmu drops a devastating rock-splitting blow right onto him, making the fighter cough up blood in agony. Mukyang marvels at the explosive power, noting it works way better than he expected. Mukyang flashes a wide, confident grin as he looks over the devastation. He recalls how stonemasons painstakingly carve stone, calling his attack the Tok-Tok strike. He finishes the secret technique right as he strikes. Mukyang dismisses all their talk about skills and internal energy, leaving the injured opponents stunned by his weirdness. Mukyang sits quietly amidst the ruins, his head bowed down. A painful flashback shows a young Jin Guan being told he is a useless disgrace to the family who should just die. Covering his face with his hands, the enraged figure fumes with pure fury. He screams out in absolute outrage, demanding to know how anyone could dare. Eyes wide and blazing, he looks down on his opponent like a mere insect. He glares ahead with an intense expression. Noticing the strange aura, Jinmu senses an unfamiliar alien energy approaching. The glowing red crystal flares up in his palm. Charging forward with blazing eyes, Jinmu demands to know where his target thinks they are going. Stunned by how fast it went down, Jinguan wonders if the fight really ended in a single hit. Flames erupt wildly as a fighter charges forward. As fire engulfs the space, a voice warns that it is too late. Using the Scourge technique, multiple blazing clones suddenly surround the opponent. He mocks the fighter's foolish inability to tell heaven from earth. A dark-haired warrior thrusts his fist forward toward a masked opponent engulfed in flames. Surrounded by fire, the clone asks if he can find the real body. He replies that more clones do not equal better attacks, wondering if they will just swing at thin air. As the burning smell blocks his senses, someone notes his arrogance reaches the sky, but he simply replies that it might be the case. However, the scarred fighter warns that he has already killed countless guys just like his opponent. He recalls there were certainly guys strong beyond imagination, easily keeping pace with someone as nameless as him. Faced with this talk, the long-haired warrior demands to know how long these cheap illusions will keep up. In the darkness, tension builds as the fierce confrontation continues without interruption. The scarred man grins, pointing out that everyone who talks about righteousness and plays the hero shares one interesting trait. As flames roar around them, a scarred figure remarks that everything falls apart the moment something precious gets destroyed. Caught in the devastation, she can only gasp in shock as the narrator notes that